How do you become an AI engineer in 2025? Well, the truth is, I don't know, but my friend does because he's an AI engineer. He's been doing this for many years. He runs a successful freelance business, teaches a ton of people how to do this. So I'm sitting down with him and getting him to break down everything you need to do to become an AI engineer in 2025 and beyond. Nicolia, thanks for joining me. Can you just give like a really quick intro? What do you do? What's your specialty? And why should people listen to you?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm an engineer. I have my YouTube channel as well, doing tons of courses, all of that pretty much. So my main stuff is AI engineering, freelance projects and so on. So that's what we're going to talk about in this video here. I have a YouTube channel as well, around 100K. So you can definitely go in and check that out as well. Cover the basic fundamentals of machine learning, AI and so on, but also now getting into, okay, how can we build AI systems? How can we actually build a full scale system, back end, front end, AI module and apply it to business use cases?
For sure. And you do a lot of computer vision stuff as well, right?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so let's get right into it. First things first, I want to become an AI engineer. What do I need to know already? What fundamentals, what math? Just break down the requirements before I start, going down this path.
Yeah, for sure. So if you want to be an AI engineer, the most important thing is just to learn what are the different algorithms available, what are the different models, frameworks, and so on. Because if you want to stand out, if you want to be a freelancer, land jobs, and so on, even if you don't take the traditional path, you just need to get there as fast as possible. Learn the different models, learn the differences, how do we apply it to different business use cases, and then it's all about, okay, how do we build systems around it? The AI is doing all the work, but again, it's only 10-20% of the full system. So it's more about use the framework, integrate it into the software system, and that's how we use.
Okay, so I need to know some basic software engineering principles as well, either at the same time or before I become an AI engineer. Is that correct?
Yeah, you can definitely take that approach. As I mentioned, it's easier to get into AI from the software engineering background than the other way around because we need to know how to build systems. It's all about building systems at the end of the day.
Gotcha. And when it comes to math, a lot of people have this preconception that you need to be super advanced in math. You need to have a PhD or at least finish all the computer science math programs. Is that the case? How much math do you really need to know, especially today in this age?
Yeah, this is a big concern by most people. They think they need all the math, all the statistics and so on. That's only if you want to be a very high level AI researcher and so on, create models and so on. Again, it's personal preference. But if you just want to be an AI engineer, it's more about knowing the fundamentals, knowing the models and so on. Okay, how do the models learn? We don't need to know that. We just need to know, okay, how do we train the model? How do we take that model and how do we use it on a business use case?
Okay, amazing. Yeah, so I think a little bit of math, you can understand a bit. It can help you have a deeper understanding. But speaking from experience, I'm not a math guy and I was able to do AI totally fine. And now I don't do any math when I'm using AI because I just use these LLMs or pre-trained models or, a lot of the stuff you can figure out if you need to, and you don't need to do advanced calculus and integrals and all this stuff. Like you said, unless you want to be an absolute expert when it comes to the theory. All right. So in terms of more of a roadmap here, if let's say I get those core skills, like you said, how do I start breaking into AI engineering? What do I learn right now so that in 6 months, I can start applying for AI jobs or landing freelance gigs?
Yeah, for sure. So just get started with the very basic because again, most of the models, they learn the exact same way. It's all about the data when we're talking about AI. So down the path, you'll know all the frameworks, all the different models and so on, but start with the basic machine learning because it's all about taking data, train a model, and then you'll get the outputs. It's kind of like a black box, but we have the basic fundamentals with linear regression, different machine learning algorithms like k-means, clustering and so on, where we just have the data. Most of them are based on statistics as well, but you need to know that. If you know that, you can also get into deep learning where we have neural networks, neurons connected, have convolutional layers, we have the transformers now and so on. It's just different types of models. You can know the differences and so on. You don't need to know the fundamental, all the math statistics behind that. But this is kind of the roadmap going from basic machine learning. You can start to get into deep learning, AI and so on. Most systems now is based on the large language models, ChatGPT, all the GPT models and so on, even computer vision, natural language processing, all of those, all the new state-of-the-art models is based on the transformer architecture. So you need to know those fundamentals. Don't spend too much time with it. It's more about, okay, what are we using now? What are the differences? What are the business use cases that we can solve with these AI models?
Gotcha. So it's really about how quickly can I go from learning these fundamentals, actually applying them to real business use cases. And a lot of times now I think you're just really using an LLM. Maybe you're fine tuning it or you're adding some agent capabilities or something. But at the end of the day, the core technology is already built. It's just applying it and writing it into some kind of software, right?
Yeah, for sure. And also the direction where AI is heading now. If you want to do any changes to the network, if you want to do some pre-processing to the data and so on, we can just ask the AI agents, all the large language models and so on. We have our code editors basically just doing all of it. So it's more supervision, know, okay, how is exactly getting to this response here, take that code snippet, use it into basically just glue the different parts together. So it's more about that. You need to know the fundamentals. You can't just take random code from the output from a large language model and use that directly. But it's at that level you need to know. You don't need to know it deeper than if you're actually able to glue all the parts together from the LLM outputs.
Gotcha. And I think, at least in my experience, one of the important parts as well is like data, right? So like data pre-processing, cleaning, analyzing. So like, can you talk about that? Like, what's your experience with data, and like, what do you need to learn around that? Like, do I need to learn pandas and NumPy, Matplotlib? Like, can you give me some more concrete examples?
Yeah, for sure. So NumPy, pandas. Also, we're talking about like computer vision in general, like OpenCV. You can do like a lot of image processing and so on with that. But pretty much all those libraries is just for like applying different math statistics and so on numerical data. So you can both do it on images, audio, and so on. Like, it's just like one-dimensional arrays, two-dimensional arrays, like all machine learning, AI, and so on. Also, if you're talking about, if you need to know some math, like it's just like linear algebra, vectors, like how do matrices and so on work. Like, if you know it at that level, pretty much everything is just numbers, it's just vectors, arrays, and so on that we just pass into the models. We get the outputs out and so on. So it's really important to learn those frameworks. But if you're getting into like AI and so on, like PyTorch, TensorFlow, those are some really good frameworks if you want to do model training. Scikit-learn, sklearn, and all of those frameworks. You can use the functionalities out of the box. It's all about like taking the data. When you're solving business use cases, it's all about like getting data as well. Like, so it's really hard to get data if you're doing computer vision. Like, if you just want to train like large language models, you need to like pretty much get a data set for the whole internet. So that's the hardest part. Like, most of it is in the data. Know how the models work, how to apply it in different use cases, how to take the data set, train the models, and it's pretty much it. Like, trash in is also trash out, so it's all about the data.
Makes sense. And you would say probably that like Python is the language to go with then, right?
Yeah, for sure. In machine learning AI, Python for pretty much all development, everything, because at the end of the day, we'll just take our script, extract the model, and then we'll deploy that model. We can deploy it like as an endpoint on the edge or something like that. But the output from AI engineering, so is just a model. We need to deploy it, and then we can use it as an endpoint or whatever.
Gotcha. So I always say, like, if you want to be competitive in this market, you need to have some kind of specialization. Sure, the domain knowledge is good. Like, you should be well-rounded, but you need to have one area that your strengths lean towards. So when it comes to AI specifically, like, that's a really broad term, right? Like, AI encapsulates a lot of things. So what are the top specializations within AI you're seeing right now that are competitive that people should get into?
Yeah, for sure. So some of the most popular ones is, of course, like large language models and so on. I actually think it's probably a pretty bad idea to get into that to start with, at least if you want to like get into it, like stand out and so on as well, because it's the obvious choice. Like, most people are going in that direction. It's really easy to get up and running. We have the large language models. You can just pull them relatively easy. You don't have to know that much about it. We have like Llama Index, we have LangChain and all those frameworks. If you watch like a video, like 10, 20 minute tutorial on YouTube, you can pretty much like have a system up and running with that. So it's not a competitive advantage. If you can create something in 20 minutes, like, that's not a competitive advantage. So computer vision is very fast evolving as well. All of it is pretty much coming together now. We have like multi-modalities where all the models, they basically just take like video, audio, text as input and gives us output as well. Most important thing is in AI machine learning as well is also the processing speed. So when we have AI large language models, like, we're talking about like millions, like hundreds of millions, billions of parameters. If you're talking about like audio data, image data, and so on, like, it's so much data that you need to process. Let's say that we have like a full HD image, like it's megapixels that we need to feed into a model, get the output as well. So some of that is actually like, could take like 100, 200 milliseconds just to get a response back. So if you have real-time applications, computer vision, audio, and so on, it's way more about like processing speed. So also knowing that, if you want to get into like the practical aspect of it, is knowing, okay, not just how do we train a model, just take an arbitrary model. It's all about the processing speed as well, because we can't have like models running. Imagine if you're using ChatGPT and took like 2 minutes to get the response back, then it would not really be that popular as it is now. Yeah.
For sure. So you mentioned kind of LLMs, computer vision. Is there any other specializations we should know about within AI? Like, I guess data specifically is kind of one, right?
Yeah, for sure. If you just know, like, they all kind of like go hand in hand to some extent, but yeah, the main ones is like natural language processing, which is like large language models and all that, which also covers like audio, but those are like the three main modalities or pillars in AI.
Okay, so that's great. Let's say maybe I pick a specialization, I start getting good in that. If I want to break into the field, get some real world experience, should I prioritize getting a job first, like going down that traditional path, or getting into freelance? I know that you have a successful freelance career. You do a ton of freelance projects. You even have a course where you teach freelance coding as well, which you guys can check out from the link in the description, and AI specifically. What do you recommend nowadays? Where are you seeing people have success?
No, definitely take the freelance approach for sure. Like, not even if you succeed at it, you'll become a better version of yourself. You'll learn a ton because at the end of the day, it's about solving systems. There's a huge gap going from traditional education, also in AI engineering, probably also in software engineering and so on. But I can see it in AI engineering. Like most people, they get out of their degree, like they spend 5 years they getting a degree or even more, and they get into the real world, corporate world, and so on. They don't know how to act like take the AI model, deploy it into production, act like build it into a larger software system, because we can't just sit in a Jupyter notebook or like in a Python script. It's much more about that. It's not just about changing the layers. It's most of the work is act like deploying it and act like getting it to work into an existing system.
It was just like freelance versus job.
Yeah, so you'll learn a ton by going like the freelance path. Depends on if you're taking the traditional education, you can do it on the sideline and so on as well. But if you want to stand out, like you need to do something different compared to like everybody else. But freelancing is a very good way to get practical experience, get into different projects and so on. Also build projects from scratch, because most freelance projects, when you get into it, when you act like get freelance project in, it's more like someone reaching out to you with an idea. It's not big companies reaching out to you to like work for them like 20 hours, like 30 hours every single week. It's more about like, okay, how do we act like have a problem? How do we solve that? Build a solution from scratch. That's at least like most of my projects, like probably 90%. And in the start, when I started out, it was like pretty much all projects, like starting from scratch, try to solve a business use case and act like deploy it into a system.
Yeah, that's a really good point. If you work on freelance, like you're immediately thrown in an environment where like you got to figure everything out. Like you're starting from an idea, you got to gather all the requirements, you have to work with a client. Like you're learning so much more than if you strictly go into a job. It's also easier to break in, obviously, right? Because getting, some gig work is simpler than getting a full-time job, especially in today's job market. So last thing I want to ask you here, how do you keep up with AI, right? Like AI is changing so fast. I feel like every week I go look, there's some new AI code editor, new LLM. Like it's madness, right? Even for people like in the YouTube space like me, where I see all the videos, like every week something's changing. So how do you keep up, and how do you recommend people like continually leveling up their skills? Because as we've seen, the barrier to entry keeps getting steeper and steeper and steeper and steeper year over year.
Yeah, so it's pretty much like a full-time job if you just want to stay up to date with all the new models, like coming out every single day, depending on the domain that you're in and so on. But everything is starting to come together now. But some really good resources, just like LinkedIn, go to LinkedIn. Like a lot of people are posting it. I also recommend like just put your work out there, like do research. If you put out the work there, you also force yourself to act like stay up to date, research new things and so on. Like that's kind of like how I learned pretty much everything that I know in my life. Is just like, okay, I need to do YouTube videos. I need to do your LinkedIn posts. I need to stay up to date. I'm doing freelance projects and so on. I need to have a competitive advantage. So I act like need to do this research. LinkedIn, very good option. Like also Twitter, X and so on. Like a lot of people are posting all the new papers coming out, and you don't really have to spend too much time on it. Even like Hugging Face is very popular in the AI machine learning space. They have like a daily papers. You can just go in there. It's very easy to stay up to date. You just see like the top 10 most upvoted papers. If you spend 2 minutes on that every single day, like you're already like above like 99% of people like staying up to date with the new stuff.
For sure. Just stay tuned in, right? Just kind of keep your eyes out, keep looking for stuff. It's not like you need to spend an hour a day reading research papers, but you just want to know about especially major things that are happening in this industry.
Yeah, for sure. And don't have FOMO, because like again, it's impossible. Like it's impossible to stay up to date with all the newest stuff. Like we don't want to do that. We just need to know, okay, what direction is it going, what's possible and so on, know the frameworks and so on. Even AI machine learning and so on, even if this stuff like used 5-10 years ago and so on is still what's used today. It's just some of the new models just know the direction, where it's heading. Also, especially like if you're learning AI now, you need to know, okay, what is the direction? It's changing so fast right now. I couldn't even imagine like starting a degree now, because in 5 years it's going to be like a whole nother world of AI.
Yeah, especially when you're learning it in something like university, where like they're already out of date, and then you have AI coming, and it's like they can't adjust the curriculum fast enough. Anyways, thank you very much for joining me. I do want to let everyone know you do have an AI career program where you teach people all of the AI skills they need to know, starting with the fundamentals, as well as actually help them land freelance jobs, right? Like that's kind of the main thing you focus on. So can you touch on that a little bit and like some success you've had in that program?
Yeah, for sure. So I have an AI career program, a bunch of cool guys in there as well. We also have like community aspect of it, which is very important to have when you're starting out, because the hardest step is actually like the first step, getting into it, getting started and so on. But inside the AI career program, I teach the practical stuff of AI. So not the fundamentals. I have that on my YouTube channel and so on. You can find tons of different resources out there. But how to act like take a project, train the models. I have all the technical courses for the practical experience, but also how to act like put your work out there, build a personal brand, get started with freelancing and so on, because you'll learn a ton. Different aspect of life. It's pretty much like setting up a business. You need to know like how to stand out, how to communicate, how to present yourself, solve business use cases. It's not about just like getting a project. No one is just telling you, okay, you need to solve this problem. You get a problem statement, and then you need to come up with a whole pipeline, communicate, and so on. So it's very good to get into freelancing to start with, as we talked about earlier in the video as well, because when you just take a 5-year degree, you get out of university, you're not getting into managing positions, you're not getting into senior positions, you start out with internships, you get into junior positions and so on. Like you have no responsibility at that stage. You just get tasks, you solve those tasks, and that's pretty much it. Where I did all the freelancing, pretty much worked like full-time freelance projects while I was studying, but I was able to get out into managing roles like right after university because I've already done like 50, 100 different projects, solved different use cases, up to date with all the newest technologies and so on. So it's very good for that. Also have like investing courses and so on. So pretty much just like a whole life program. So I'm getting into investing, trading, and all of that as well. So it's pretty much like just a complete program.
For sure. If you want to master life, just check that out. Anyways, thanks very much for joining me, man. This was a great episode. Hopefully you guys got some value and kind of learned about the AI landscape and how to break in.